Hello and welcome back to the next update of this build. This update will consist of working on the trim for the interior windows here. As you see, I already done one of them here for the far window, the smaller window. And I'm just going to walk you through my steps thinking on the other one here. So first thing I needed to do was just to take the depth, how deep that was, and I just used a scrap piece of balsa wood, put it up there. Took a pen and just make a tick mark there, what you see there. And then to add a little bit of a ledge, you just added another couple millimeters. And I set that on my calipers here that you see me use before. So I have that measurement. And that's going to be the width of that. So using the calipers and using a piece of balsa wood which I already pre-painted white, I just scored a line across, so it's nice and even. And then cut that out, and then I do the same thing for the measurements for the horizontal measurements and the vertical measurements. Same process. Just take a piece of wood, measure it out, score it, and cut it from here. And I'll be back with that. Okay, so first was cutting out the bottom and top, gluing a little bit of white glue, just glue them in place. Using my little tool here, whatever you want to call this. Make sure it's pressed down all the way in, top and bottom. And then we'll let that set for a few minutes. Once the glue sets up, I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. Measure the insides of it and cut a piece to size and do the same thing. Just put it in there, a little bit of glue, and let that dry. The little bit of overhang you see here, I'll take care of that later, and I'll cut that all flush. All right. Okay, after I had the 4 pieces around the opening, the glue set enough, I come back with a straight edge razor blade and I trim off the excess flush with the wall, except for the bottom part, which I'm going to leave like this, so it just forms a little bit of a ledge. So just very carefully come here, and this is balsa wood, so it cuts pretty easily. Get in there and trim these off like that. Alright, I'll do that off camera and I'll be back. Okay, after I trimmed off the excess, I used another piece of balsa wood that I trimmed off to about 3 millimeters wide, and I'm going to be using that for the left and right trim here. So I'm just going to apply it, glue it, trim it off the side, apply it, glue it, trim it off the sides. Okay, so the next step that I did, I cut out a piece to use as a header here, and as far as length and width, just enough to cover the area that I have there. Glued it with a little bit of white glue. Now there is a little bit of a gap between this and behind it, so I took some Vallejo putty and just fill in the gap, which I already did here and the one here on the right hand side. And once everything dries up, I just come back with the straight edge and cut across the header here as evenly as possible. Like that. Then I'll come back with a sanding stick and sand everything down smooth, so everything is nice and even. And once that's completed, clean this up. I'll sand anything that's uneven, like this little ridge here. Sand it back down. Now I'll come back with any touch-up paint or even some Vallejo putty if there's any gap, and finish up the molding here for the kitchen windows. And now for the other windows, we just pan the camera over a little bit, which is the windows for the storage area. I was thinking about framing them, but I think I'm going to leave them natural stone the way they are. I figure it's a storage area, and I really don't need to trim it off and make it look pretty in any sense. Alright, so I'll be back with the next part of the update of working here in the cellar. Okay, so I finished the trim around the windows, and I had forgotten that I didn't put any grout in the lines of the tiles here, so I did that. And that's basically that spackle compound. Diluted slightly with water, spread out, and then wiped off. I also filled in that gap. There was a little gap here in the corner as well, so that's been filled in. I've also gone ahead and filled in the gaps that I had up here with the same spackle compound that I had left over. So filled that out. One thing I also realized that since apparently this foam, the pink foam that I'm using is not entirely even around, so part of the walls, if I can swing this around, especially here in the back wall, this is ever so slightly raised above the red brick. It's probably like maybe a millimeter or a fraction thereof. So I have to go around and sand it off, which is what I started doing, sanding all this smooth. As I'm sanding it, I'm making sure that I go down just to the red brick, because that's my level line all the way around, and what I'm going to be building upon for the first floor and the subsequent floors. All right. So what I'm going to do now is just go around and sand this off. As always, doing any sanding, always wear a mask, dust mask, adequate ventilation. Don't be breathing in the stuff in. All right, so I'll be back in a while. Okay, so about 20 minutes later, I finished sanding all around the edges so I can get a nice smooth, even with the inside brick. I did get a little bit of a extra scratching here and there of some areas that I'll need to touch up, like those interior walls, and then I'll need to pigment and stain the tops of the bricks here like I did with originally, and seal them all in. So I think I am in good shape with the interior of the cellar. I took out, for that temporarily, I took out the fireplace and the cabinets and the stairs. Just I don't want to breaking anything as I'm working here. I will apply them back, especially once I start working on the first floor. I still haven't done the hardware for the doors here, but I'm still contemplating exactly what to do that. Doing vacuuming, after I sanded it, I also vacuumed and dusted this off in one little pieces here. It got sucked into the vacuum, I think, or fell off. Anyway, couldn't find it, so I'll have to replace that once I start working on the outside. Anyway, so I think now is a good time. After I touch up these little parts, I'm going to go and start on the flooring for the first floor. Hello and welcome back. Alright, so I'm going to start the framing of the floor for the first level. I'm going to be using these bass wood. This is 3/16 of an inch square. And this is a small piece here. And using the brick walls which are standing, that's where this is going to sit in that channel. So since I'm using the standard brick molds, wall molds, so the measurements, I can just take them from what you see here, which are some spare test moldings from before. So the sides are going to be the 2 panels wide, and then the front's going to be 5 panels wide. So which makes the measurement pretty easy. So I can just measure out the 2, make my mark, and that's a errand mark there, sorry, where I will be cutting. So I'll cut 2 of these for either side, or the short side. Then I'll cut one, the long one, for the front and the back. And then I'm going to cut another couple of short ones which will go inside, which will go in here and here. And that's going to be the main framework. And then I'll go back in and I'm going to fill in each joist in the middle, and so forth. All right. So I'm just going to measure and cut this in the miter box, and I'll be back with that. All right. So after measuring and cutting the pieces that I needed for the main support of the floor here, I placed them here over the walls, make sure everything fits, so we'll dry fitting before gluing them. Now, since I'm going to be using the same general template for the first, the second, and the attic floor, I'm also going to measure these out, and so I can duplicate them later when I get to work on those floors. So now I'm just going to clear off my table and glue these together using some clamps and some weights, so they're nice and sturdy. For gluing, I am going to use Gorilla Wood Glue, just to have a good strong bonds for these. Right, and I'll be back after the glue has set and dried. Just real quick, just showing how I am gluing these main floorboards beams here, using my Legos, using some weights here on each end to weigh it down, so I have a nice tight seal connection there. So I'm just repeating that down the line. Okay, so here's a little test fitting of the floor framing. You can see I started filling up this side, the side over here over the kitchen. Again, that's the 3/16" square timbers that I'm using. I have, the way I'm cutting them, I take 3 together, and using the miter box, I'll just go ahead and cut them 2 sides so I can get 3 cuts in one shot and fill them up. Alright, so I'll be back when I've completed most of the framing here. Okay, so where we are so far, some changes from the last clip. Alright, so I'm going to be putting the walls on top of here, and the walls are going to be, have some thickness to them. So along the front and the back, I got the beams themselves was probably support, but over here I really didn't have support, and I should have thought about that ahead of time. So I put in these little blockers here on either end so that the wall has support once I put it on. Also, I did not account for the fireplaces, since I'm going to have this fireplace go up. So here I started on the kitchen fireplace, just blacked out the marked the ones I'm going to cut off, and put in these small beams across here for support. And also, since I'm going to have fireplaces on this side as well, I need to put some support underneath it to support all that brick. So I'm going to have to put in a little bit of more brick support here and cut out part of here like I'm going to do here. But first I got to figure out exactly what size fireplace I'm going to have on the upper floors. So let's do that. Okay, I think I came up with a good solution so I can figure out the footprint for the other fireplaces. So this is what I came up with. Let me take this out of the way. So again, these are using the same pier mold that I use for most of the other fireplace. So I got 1, 2, 3, 3 of the 3 bricks across pier molds, and then I got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 2 bricks across mold. So forming a right angle, and then get this little V shape here where you got the angle. Same with had an angle over there on the other one. So I think that's going to give you the basic structure. Up on the first and second level, there's going to be cabinetry to either side of this, and so all these bricks on this side will be covered up, and then you have the framing around the mantle. So the only part you're going to see really brick is just the interior part here. All right, so I think that's where I'm going to go measure this out, make sure I'm in the center, and put in some pier supports here. And I'm going to do the same process that I did for this wall. After I glue it, I'm going to stain it with the pigment, let that dry, put a varnish over it, and then apply the grouting solution. All right, so I'll be back when that's completed. All right, so I think we're in a good spot with the framing for the first floor. Now, the reason I'm going through all this trouble about the framing here is that this will be visible as the ceiling of the cellar. So when you take off the first floor, if you look underneath it, you'll see the joists and so forth. For the second floor, I'm going to do something slightly different and simpler. Actually, even before, my next step for this actually going to be painting this, staining it, so that you get that dark wood color for the joists and so forth. But before I do that, I'm going to take some measurements and do another one of this, a simpler version of this for the second floor. I don't need to see all the joists for the second floor. It could be framed slightly differently, and any infill I can do it with foam, which will be then covered up by the material of the flooring and the ceiling. All right, so let me just take this off. Everything here is just temporarily, it's not glued in yet. I'm gonna take this off, put this off to the side. See, like I said, things are not glued in yet, just having their positioning so I can set it up. I see there in the kitchen, I repainted the cabinets to either side of the main fireplace there. I went with a darker wood color instead, and that's all that is. It's just burnt sienna, brush painted. And then once it dried, I just put a clear coat over it. Here's the pier support pier for the fireplaces here on this side. It's not glued in yet. I just put the grouting here a little bit while ago, so letting it dry and then give it a final matte coating, and then glue that in place. All right, so while that's drying, Just mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and just make a duplicate of this off camera, or a close duplicate of it for the second floor. Alright, so I did the second floor framing. As you see, compared to the first floor, is quite a simpler affair, so I'm not going to be showing all of those beams. And you see here, this is what I'm going to be doing with the rest of the floor. I'm just going to take some black board that I have, which is actually the same thickness as the 4 beams, and fill in the rest. And then once this gets paneled up on top and bottom, I'll have a nice good solid floor. I also have to do another one for the attic space. Now here, while that was drying, I also went ahead and put a wash over the bottom here that you're going to see. So what this is kind of a dark brown wash. Let that dry, then I put a burnt umber wash over it. This side doesn't matter because it's going to be covered up by the floor. And speaking of flooring, what I'm using for the flooring here is some of these balsa strips. So these are 3-foot long strips in 1/16 inch, 1.6 millimeters deep, thick. And this is the natural state. And I painted these to have a little bit more of a warmer tone to them, more warm yellow tone to them. I don't know how well the camera picks them up. It's a little darker on the bottom. That's going to be what's facing the cellar, and that's going to be on top. And all this, the paint is just using some of those acrylic Liquitex paints diluted in water, and use that as the wash. So this is a combination of these 3 colors, mainly the unbleached titanium, a little bit of the yellow, and just a dab of the burnt sienna here. And so the next step is going to be to add this to the floor. Once it's glued in, I'm going to varnish this a couple of times to get a nice good finish on the floor, and then we'll start working on the walls. And here in the cellar, I have that's the support for the fireplace in place. I sealed up the top, so once this is fully dry, I'll paint this up like I did with the others so they blend in. And alright, so I'll be back with the flooring. Alright, so here we are gluing down the floor. So what I did was just cut out a piece to fit one side, gluing it down, weighing it down with these weights. Once that's set, I'll move along and glue on the other side. As you see, I didn't cut out for the pieces yet. I'll let till everything is set and dry and it's fully set, and I'll come back with an X-Acto knife and cut out the openings for the staircase and any other openings that I need. Alright, so I'll be back after I finish the flooring here. Alright, so here we are with the first floor all paneled up. You can take a look at it close up. I also went and did a little scoring of the planks, and we'll see if you can pick that up in the light. Also, I gave this a gloss coat to give it a bit of a finished floor look to it, and cut out the holes for the staircase there and the 2 fireplaces. And this is what the underneath looks like now. Give a little bit more contrast there. Alright, so I'm gonna end this update at this point, and then I'll pick up again next time on the floor and starting on the exterior walls for the first floor. Alright, thank you all for watching. Thank you for the likes and the comments. Take care. Be safe.